Could it be possible to predict a tragedy or even your own death? And if you could, what would you do? Well, in the case of these people I found, their eerie premonitions of the future actually came true, and some of them are the most famous people in the world. On July 1st, 1566, a priest bidding farewell to the prophet Nostradamus said, "Until tomorrow." But Nostradamus answered him, "You will not find me alive at sunrise," and he died that very night. In the mid-90s, Michael Jackson told Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, with a calm certainty, "I'm afraid that I am going to end up like your dad the way he did." When she tried to deter him from the idea, he nodded as if he knew what he knew. Michael pestered Lisa's mom repeatedly when Elvis died how it happened, where and why. And in 2009, Michael Jackson met an early death just like Elvis. In 2006, days before Steve Irwin was impaled by a stingray barb, he gave a speech to his film crew, thanking them for their help like a strange finale moment that they all thought was nice but very, very weird. His widow said he'd always had a sense that his life would be cut short. But oddly, Irwin's producer, John Stanton, had felt something was wrong before filming too, to the point where he'd even written a living will and got some medical checkups before filming, almost like he knew there was a death coming and just mistook it for his own. Seeing a tragedy ahead of time or even your own death is more common than you think. So let's dive into some of the strangest, most tragic, terrible, and oddly inspiring death premonitions from celebrities who we've all heard about, but maybe never in this way. Because at the end, I'm going to share the metaphysical reason why I think this is happening that might spin this all in a positive direction, as surprising as that is. Join me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, for a metaphysical show that's out of this world. I want to jump into a story from my own Dreams Are Real episode where I talked about Abraham Lincoln, who was apparently interested in the meaning of dreams and what they had to say about future events. Just a few days before his assassination on April 14th, 1865, he told his wife Mary and some friends about a dream he'd had. In the dream, he walked into the East Room of the White House and found a covered corpse being guarded by soldiers and mourners all around. He asked the soldier who died, and the man replied, "The president. He was killed by an assassin." Interestingly, Lincoln didn't see this as an omen of his own death and thought the body in the dream wasn't his. But he did clearly believe in the power of dreams. On one occasion in 1863, he'd written a letter to his wife when he was away saying that Mary had better put his son's pistol away because he'd had an ugly dream about him. So Lincoln must have dreamed this kid blew his head off or something and wanted to prevent it. Abraham Lincoln also had a recurring dream of sailing across an unknown body of water at great speed, which always seemed to happen before nearly every important event of the war. And he had that recurring dream one last time the night before he died, if you can believe that. So Abe saw his own death in his mind while he was asleep, even if he didn't recognize it was his. But what about others who saw the future while they were awake? On Valentine's Day 2013, South African model Reeva Steenkamp was shot dead by her Olympic runner boyfriend Oscar Pistorius, who allegedly thought she was an intruder hiding in the bathroom. But years earlier, before she'd ever met him, Reeva had apparently predicted it. When she was 14, Reeva painted a picture of a gunman, an angel, and a stairway to heaven. After her death, her parents described the painting. She's showing horror and she's afraid. She's terrified. Her hands are over her mouth and she's terrified. Everyone dies, but how did Reeva know how she would pass away years earlier? Maybe some people are tuned into cosmic patterns, or their minds are a little unlocked and can foretell what the next steps in their life's plan will be, or even their deaths. John Lennon often confided in the Beatles' secretary Frida Kelly that he thought he would die young. He used to say, "I won't be here when I'm 40. I won't make 40. Bizarrely, in a 1965 interview, Lennon allegedly told a reporter, "We'll either go in a plane crash or we'll be popped off by some loony." He'd also sung about living on borrowed time after his near-death experience and whispered, "Shoot me," at the beginning of Come Together.
Shoot me. Shoot me.
In 1975, when Lennon's son was born, he took a hiatus from the music industry, but after 5 years, all of a sudden he came back to the studio and recorded songs. Why? He had a strange anxiety in his heart, and his final act was to complete his life's work, almost like he knew his time was running out. A few months after that, John Lennon was shot and murdered by Mark David Chapman. My question is, why do all these shooters all have 3 names? It's like, if you have 3 names, you might be a shooter. Do you have 3 names? Don't do that. So John Lennon was right that he had limited time, but what about people who know exactly how much time they have left? You have to wonder how they knew. Author Mark Twain was born in 1835, just as Halley's Comet appeared in the sky over his hometown. The comet moves in an orbit that takes about 75 years to reach its starting point. Well, in 1909, Twain was quoted, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. It will be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't go out with Halley's Comet. Almighty has said, no doubt. Now here are these 2 unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." On April 20th, 1910, Halley's Comet made its closest and most visible approach to the sun, and Mark Twain died of a heart attack the very next day. A poetic end to an author's life. But for this next actress, she had a grisly and dramatic end that she unfortunately saw coming. In 1967, actress Sharon Tate was 24 years old, dating the famous director Roman Polanski. But a few years earlier, when she was staying in her former boyfriend Jay Sebring's house, she was in her bedroom when she got a terrible feeling of foreboding that she just couldn't shake off. She tried to sleep, but then suddenly a man entered her room. The house's former owner, Paul Byrne, had committed suicide several years earlier, but somehow there he was, standing right in front of her. Sharon ran out of the room and down the stairs, but came face to face with a horrific sight. Another ghostly image of the man, this time with his throat slashed. Did she see the spirit of Byrne? Sharon thought it was an omen that she would be the victim on the stairs. Nobody could say anything to convince her otherwise. Over the next couple of years, she and Polanski married, she got pregnant, and they continued their hippy-dippy lives full of free love and large groups of people in their home, some of whom they didn't know. I mean, imagine being as famous as Polanski and Tate, and you're just letting random people into your house. I mean, enter Charles Manson. Good Lord. A friend commented with fear that the Polanskis were too trusting, to the point of recklessness. And in 1969, 2 weeks before giving birth, Sharon was murdered by the Manson family cult, who stabbed and then hanged her, leaving marks similar to Paul Byrne's in the vision that had haunted her. And that whole thing is a crazy rabbit hole that we don't have time for here. I'll just leave it at that. Ronnie Van Zant from the Lynyrd Skynyrd band told drummer Artemis Pyle that he would never live to see 30 and that he would go out with his boots on, in other words, on the road. Pyle brushed him off. "Ronnie, don't talk like that," but the man knew his destiny. In fact, he told his father many times, "Daddy, I'll never be 30 years old." His dad asked, "Why are you talking this junk? You'll never be 30 years old." But Ronnie replied, "Daddy, that's my limit." Ronnie talked about his own fateful ending so many times that his wife Judy was certain he was right, to the point where on the night that the band's plane crashed and she heard the news, she knew right away that her husband was one of the ones that didn't make it. Artemis Pyle, however, survived the crash and said that when the right engine went out on board, everyone else panicked, but Ronnie just rose from the floor where he was getting a massage, shook the drummer's hand, and calmly walked to his seat. Somehow, Ronnie knew he was going to die. If you watch my episode on Dreams Are Real, you also know that the band's vocalist, JoJo Billingsley, had a vivid, horrifying dream 2 nights before the crash, detailing every single thing that later happened. Her mother tried to reassure her it was just a dream, but JoJo knew it was too real. Weirdly, she had gone to sleep right after talking to Ronnie. And there's more. Ed King was in the original Lynyrd Skynyrd band until 1975, when touring became too much. Reports say he slipped away in the dead of the night because things were too violent and pretty much every day was traumatic. But more importantly, he'd had a bad premonition and felt he should obey the urge to get out when he did. That urge saved his life. And Ronnie Van Zant indeed didn't make it to 30. He was 29 when he died. But if all this is getting depressing, let's end with one that weirdly turns into a metaphysical conversation about life and death and the choices we make along the way. Just months before he was murdered in a drive-by shooting in 1996, Tupac Shakur recorded some haunting lyrics. "I've been shot and murdered. Can't tell you how it happened, word for word." On the same album, was the song Do G's Get to Go to Heaven? And in the music video for I Ain't Mad at Ya, Tupac is shown singing up in heaven. Sorry, I'll never talk with that lingo again. Did his music predict his death? Well, it wasn't just the music. Back in 1994, an interviewer with the Entertainment Weekly asked him where he'd be in 15 years. This is what he said.
Where do you see yourself?
Best case, in a cemetery. Not in a cemetery. Sprinkled in ashes, smoked up by my homies. Worst case, I mean that's the worst case. That's the worst case.
Okay.
That's the worst case. And I'm not really a religious person, but I believe that God wants me to do something.
Tupac talked a lot about how he had no friends, no resting place, and he could never sleep. Everyone wanted to use him. All the people he grew up with just believed in the press machine, not the real Tupac he was. At least that's what he thought. When asked about a court case and whether he would prevail, he answered,
I have to see. I believe in God. Whatever's supposed to happen is supposed to happen.
In 1995, Tupac asked Vibe magazine for a prison interview. He was being held on bail at the time and had summoned the interviewer because he said, "This is my last interview. If I get killed, I want people to get every drop. I want them to have the real story." Well, why did he think he might get killed? Not long before, he had a near-death experience. Tupac had been shot 5 times in the head, hand, and groin. But bizarrely, the bullets didn't hurt at all, and doctors were shocked to let him know that he could still have kids. With both that bullet and his head wound, the shots had gone through the skin and out the skin, hitting nothing vital. After the first shot, all he saw was white. He just kept blacking out. When he made it to his friends, he walked there without enough pain to know how damaged his body was. I mean, basically a miracle. But there were still people after him, even as he recovered, leaving anonymous calls on even the hospital phone threatening his life. This media conversation he sat down for was different from any before, though, and it's where everything changed. The Vibe interviewer noticed Tupac was more alert than any interview they'd ever done. Tupac said it was because his previous interviews were done with an addict who feared that going to jail meant he couldn't live. But once he was stuck in jail and forced to be clean, not smoking weed or drinking anymore, his mind cleared all up. When some people have a near-death experience, they describe having a life review where they see all the good and bad things they've done in their lives, the people they've hurt, and where they went off track. Well, the way Tupac was talking sounded just like that, like a man who knew his time might be up and wanted to share his understanding with the world. Tupac said once the weed was out of his system, he saw all the things he'd done in his life to get him where he was. Emotionally, he didn't know himself. It was like he was 2 people, one good and one evil. He saw how he was scared of responsibility and ran away from the job he had to do in his life. He said this, and I think there was something deeper behind it than just the people after him. But I see now that whether I show up for work or not, the evil forces are going to be at me. They're going to come 100%, so if I don't be 100% pure-hearted, I'm going to lose, and that's why I'm losing. I don't see myself being special, I just see myself having more responsibilities than the next man. People look to me to do things for them, to have answers. I wasn't having them because my brain was half dead from smoking so much weed. Nobody could say they saw me happy. But now, with this time ticking, Tupac had a message for the world. The excuse maker in Tupac is dead. The vengeful Tupac is dead. The Tupac that would stand by and let dishonorable things happen is dead. God let me live for me to do something extremely extraordinary, and that's what I have to do. Even if they give me the maximum sentence, that's still my job. Tupac's final dreams he shared were for teaming up with Mike Tyson and creating an organization for black children to help them. He regretted steering people away from school and a way to support themselves. But here's the interesting thing. He also said he didn't have a fear of death, just a fear of coming back reincarnated. And he knew why people were after him. If they can stop me, they can stop 30 more rappers before they even born. But there's something else I understand now. If we really are saying rap as an art form, then we gotta be more responsible for our lyrics. If you see everybody dying because of what you saying, it don't matter that you didn't make them die. It just matters that you didn't save them. Some of you might be asking, Rob, what do you think? Well, most people view death as very final, a morbid and sad ending that they try to escape from. Some try to escape their reality with drugs or spending their time going after things they want. We all do it to different extents. But what if these premonitions of the future, where people knew their own endings ahead of time, were peeks through the veil that gave them a chance to use that limited time for something important? Mark Twain knew he had only 75 years and spent most of it writing. Now we all know his name. Nostradamus' prophecies of the future prepared us for a time when the forces of good and evil would be at war, which it certainly seems they are today. I mean, look at the world right now. Steve Irwin was only 42 when he died, and he made it his life's work to introduce people all over the world to amazing things in nature. Tupac's music reached millions, but he got wrapped up in darker and darker things for a long time, until he was snapped back out of it and realized he was here on Earth to help other people. The pattern I'm seeing is that whether death comes as a surprise or not, we all get glimpses into our own futures with the little things we do all the time. I mean, where's your life headed right now? Are you working on yourself and trying to make great things? Are you living what seems like a normal or unimportant life, but you're really kind to the people around you and affect their lives in that way? That matters. A lot of people wonder why some people have visions of their own death or a future in general. I'd say it's always an opportunity. If anything we encounter doesn't help us improve, like a dream or vision, then there's no use paying attention to it. But when you're shown something shocking about yourself or the future, even if it seems scary or even morbid, we can look at why it is and what we're supposed to do with that information. Then, whether we die early or late, it's not going to be so much a tragedy as an inspiration for the future, because we'll have used that life to our advantage. And death itself doesn't need to be scary. There's more to this reality than we can see with our eyes, which we cover extensively here on the Metaphysical channel. So maybe all these deaths are just the beginning of something bigger.
No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path. One that we all must take.
Tupac was afraid of reincarnating because it's pretty much a garbage heap we live in here on Earth, with lots of struggle. But if we look at the evidence, like even the extrasensory ability to have premonitions at all, well, that information had to come from somewhere higher, right? Somewhere where the plans for our whole lives are laid out. And if we someday get back to that place after we die, then our deaths are really just the beginning of something off in a better place, as they say. And the first step to getting there is living our own potential. But what do you think? Have you ever had a premonition that came true or saw something specific about the future? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to support my work and get access to 1,000 videos on mysteries, metaphysical experiences, and more, you can subscribe to the metaphysical.tv with the Mystery Junkie tier or higher. And I want to give a huge shout out to everyone supporting over there who's keeping all of this going. We really couldn't do this without you guys. Please remember to like and subscribe to the Metaphysical YouTube channel because it lets the algorithm know to push us out to more people. And check out all the other links in the description for the Metaphysical coffee and more. And with that, I hope you guys thought this episode was out of this world.